What's going on, everybody? I am your boy, Retro Bliss, and you are on the Retro Bliss Rewind podcast. Happy Intellivision Day. And we're going to celebrate tonight. We have Carlos Madruga on the show. He's a homebrew programmer. He's written quite a number of games. And so without further delay, let's bring the panel on. Mike from Mike's Gaming Gala, Brian from Retro Mods, and the man himself, Carlos. How are you doing, Carlos?
Hello. Doing well. Thank you.
Thanks for being on the show, man. I was telling the guys in the green room prior to us coming on that I streamed The Show Must Go On yesterday, even though I did it on. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. I'll have to play that more to get better at it, but I like the concept. I didn't have to respin any of the plates, though. Mike was kind of razzing me because I was
like, when I was playing, I had to go back and forth and keep going up and spinning the plates.
But Mike says you guys know each other. And of course, Mike and I have been good friends for a long time. And so he said, hey, I want to see if I can get Carlos on it. He might come on the show. And sure enough, here you are. So thank you for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
So I'm going to let Mike kind of take off and talk about some of your games. We'll get the conversation started. How's that?
Sounds good to me. So games that Carlos is credited for the Intellivision would be Heli, Antarctic Tales, including the Enhanced Edition, Infiltrator, Goon Enough, Norseman 1 and 2, which we'll talk a little bit about that. I'm very upset with Cote Gamers, but I'm not bugging them too much now because there's a postal strike in Canada. Bank Panic, The Show Must Go On, The Pandora Incident, Operation Cloudfire, Stop the Express, Eggerland Mystery, and the soon-to-be-released Paulista Avenue Redux. Now, that is not including your biggest accomplishment, which is the winner of Gaming Jeopardy on my birthday stream.
There you go. That was my life accomplishment.
Yes, there you go. So, why don't we start with instead of focusing just on Intellivision, because I know your interests aren't exclusively in television, although you've got quite a library. What made you want to program games, kind of period? What made you want to do that?
Yeah, I think it all started back in the 80s when I got my first home computer. So around when I was 13 years old or so, I got my MSX computer, and like many other folks from my generation, we got in touch with BASIC, right? So that was the first exposure to programming. So that was the case for me. And that's how I started experimenting with programming. And eventually I started playing with some games, right? So I remember the first game I programmed was a text adventure, and it was based on a graphic novel I was reading at the time from Frank Miller called Running. So ironically, I was reading a graphic novel, but my game did not have any graphics. But it's okay. I could picture, right, them in my mind.
You get a really good comic, and you're like, you know what this needs? Less imagery.
Less graphics, yes. And I went from there, right? So eventually I did like a missile command clone and other things. And I always had this interest in programming games more from not as a professional choice, like more as a hobby, as something that is entertaining to me. I think programming in general is entertaining to me. I like the kind of the problem-solving aspect of it. It's probably crazy, but I enjoy it. So I think games just came naturally over time.
I certainly share the problem-solving thing, just not the programming thing. I like problem-solving in other ways. And then, so what has drawn you? Because obviously you've got a huge library of games that you program for the Intellivision specifically. What's the big draw about the Intellivision?
I think that's a great question. To me, the Intellivision is the ideal platform for this hobby, right, that I have. First of all, because I have an emotional connection to it. So I right? When I was a kid, that's the console I had. So I grew up in Brazil. So out of 10 kids that had consoles in Brazil, I felt special because I was the one that had the television. Everyone else had either the 2600, so that would be 8 kids out of 10. And the other one kid had like the Odyssey 2. So it was the
Okay.
always the,
The Odyssey 2
one
is
who
really
had the
popular in
television.
Brazil, I've noticed.
What's that?
The Odyssey 2 is really popular in Brazil.
It is, yes, it is, and I like it very much. So, so yeah, so that's really how I got in touch with Intellivision.
A lot of death.
Go ahead, Phil. You look like you're about to ask something.
Well, I just wanted to say that I first of all I know basic programming, but I don't know how to program a game. I know how to do assign variables and and that kind of thing. But as far as doing the graphics and stuff, and each version of language does it in a different way. So, do you program in Inti Basic?
Yeah, mostly in Basic. I have a little bit of assembly here and there that I do. But yeah, I think going back to Mike's question about my preference for the Intellivision, I think besides the nostalgia aspects, there's also the constraints. At the same time, they limit what can be done. They keep it manageable, right? And I think the tool set that was developed over time, like Inti Basic and Inti Color, other development tools, really allow you to explore those constraints in a nice way. So yeah, so that's why I like to develop for it.
Well, and it's funny too because I work in the film and television industry, and I love like film and all that. And that era of film specifically, like the late 70s, the early 80s, it was a time where like film industry was exploring those constraints. And what I find really interesting is that those constraints, they force you to be more creative and will quite often result in something unique or something like everybody looks at the original Star Wars movies and says all the ones that came after it suck. The reason all the prequels and the sequels suck is because nobody was there to be like, George, you can't do that. No, we can't do that. It was, no, okay, we can't do that, so we're going to do it this way. We're going to pull back.
Yeah, I think there's an element of that when you're dealing with a platform like the Intellivision. You have to use your creativity, and sometimes there are different ways to accomplish something. But that's part of the problem-solving aspect that I mentioned, right? Creative problem-solving.
Yeah.
And but I'm with you. Even though we're commemorating today Intellivision Day, so the platform has been out for many years.
Yeah.
You still see folks pushing the envelope and doing new things, and every now and then, like I look at a game that someone is doing, and I'm like, wow, I wonder how they are doing that, right? So it's very interesting.
Yeah.
The types of tricks you can still do and come up with.
So we got a question from the chat. Operation Shutdown really love watching Phil play The Show Must Go On, and he's curious as to what the inspiration was for The Show Must Go On.
The Show Must Go On was, originally I was interested in doing a game like Mr. Chin, which was a plate spinning game for the MSX.
Or an awful one on the 2600, like Dishaster.
Yeah, Dishaster. Yeah. Mr. Chin was a little better. So I think what was missing though on Mr. Chin was just a little more context and complexity. It was exclusively about spinning plates. So I felt like we could introduce a few additional mechanics to make it a little deeper, right? So for Show Must Go On, I introduced that audience mechanism, so you have to please the audience, otherwise
I like that. Yeah.
And also there's the scoring, right? So the king, there's a there's a whole thing about the king being in denial, that you and the other jester are basically on a battle.
Yeah, as opposed to
right.
Like what you're really saying is, you took Mr. Chin. You're like, you know what this game needs? Murder.
Murder, yes. Murder and an like an oblivious king and something like that. So a little intrigue, right? Power struggles, etc. So that was the idea, really. Just to introduce a fresh layer of like a different theme, and add a few mechanisms to make it more fun.
I love the gameplay of that game, and obviously the fire jester, the one that got fired. He got fired, right? He got let go, and that's why he's mad. So he's trying to get you, because you're the new jester, and he throws knives, he throws fireballs at you. There are bats or something that come and take the plates from your from off top the poles that you're trying to spin. So there are all different kinds of things going on. But one of the things that I was really impressed with, and this is going to lead up to my next question, because I know that some programmers do their own and some do not, but the music in there is really good as well. So did you program the music, or did you have someone help you with that? How did that work?
No, I'm not a musician at all. So I normally work with more talented folks when it comes to music. And in this case, I worked with Anders Carlson. So
Okay.
Carlson is known as Carlson, right, in the Atari Age forum. So the way I coordinated with him was we kind of exchanged some ideas about the style of music that we wanted to put in this game. And so I went back to watch real plate spinning shows and things, and kind of looked at the types of music that they used, and he came up with many different titles that were along the same lines. So he's way more educated on music and composition and all that than me. And but when you see things coming together, I always say, "Man, you nailed it." So.
Well, you're not the only programmer to do that, though, because we've had John Champeau of the Atari 2600 scene, and he seeks help too, from Nathan Strum for graphics, and I think he's had Bob DiCrescenzo help with some of the sound and the music in some of his games as well. So that's quite common. So, but I really thoroughly enjoyed that game, because you really don't hear music much in 2600 games. Every great once in a while, but not very often.
Yeah,
it's because you were dodging all the knives that you thought Saber Dance would be the perfect song for.
Yeah, Saber Dance. If you watch plate spinning presentations, they use.
It's an energetic song. It makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, because they're a little frantic and all that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel fortunate to have these folks in the Intellivision scene that are both talented and willing to help. And Carlson is one of those guys.
Another one that you've
Adam
worked with. Yeah.
Yeah, Adam Toledo, right? Yep. So those guys are great to work with. And for the first time for Paulista Avenue Redux, I'm working with Mauricio Busab, right? So he's another great musician. So on my side, I have no pride. I'm happy to use contributions from talented folks, and I try and do them justice.
Yeah, and really, like when you look at, I brought some of my favorites here. Obviously, The Show Must Go On is one of my favorites. This is available from Intellivision Collector. Infiltrator, and actually, we'll do Operation Cloudfire. This is another Intellivision Collector. This is Metroidvania, kind of Montezuma's Revenge. Michael Hayes was like, no, it's not Metroidvania, it's Montezuma's Revenge. Not like that. I just said it like that. But I was like, no, it's. I see the argument either way, but it's in that vein. When I first saw this, I find this so funny. This is from Electronite. This is available if you contact them. But this is Metal Gear Solid on the Intellivision. Mm-hmm. If Snake didn't have a gun.
Snack. The best
Snack.
snack.
Now, with that game specifically, I gotta ask is
Yeah.
like because of your influences with an MSX and stuff, is that what made you go toward this game because of playing like Metal Gear on the MSX
Oh yeah,
originally?
absolutely.
Or yep.
Absolutely. I'm a big fan of Metal Gear, and I love stealth games. So, the way that game came together was back in 2020, there was this programming contest, and I had never participated on any contest. And I just said, let's give it a shot. Maybe I'll embarrass myself, but we'll see. So I was
I don't
looking
think you
for
have anything
ideas.
to be embarrassed about with your games. So.
I appreciate it, but you never know. I may said, maybe I'll fumble this, but low stakes and all that. So, and I was looking for ideas, and I said, you know what, I love Metal Gear, so I wonder if I could do a stealth action game for the Intellivision, and I had nothing to base myself on because nothing like that had been done for the Intellivision, as far as I know.
Mhm.
So I just went one step at a time, and I said, you know what, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But things started taking shape, and folks started to chime in and give ideas and test it, and it just came together. So I'm glad I took a shot at it. But looking back, it was not very easy. I mean, I think the hard part was really to have the movements from the enemies follow a certain pattern.
Yes.
But what I found was that scripting that pattern was not as easy as I expected. So
Yeah,
to
because that
coordinate it
is
with everything
absolutely
else.
crucial to the Metal Gear
Yeah.
gameplay.
Yeah.
And then to have them be able to chase you and then go back to that pattern.
Yeah, but I thought that a stealth action game, there was no reason it wouldn't be a good fit for the platform. Because I mean, if you go back to how Metal Gear was put together, and I think that came up on a Kojima interview. He
Mhm.
said, "I did it because doing full-blown action games on the MSX was not really possible. So I wanted to keep it simple and manageable and all that, and stealth just came up as something that could work, right? So I said, well, it's the same thing.
It is really difficult to do like bullet hell on the Intellivision. It's
Yeah,
not
'cause
impossible.
you don't have sprites. Yeah, you
Yeah.
just have 8 sprites to work with. So of course you can do, like they say, software sprites. So you use the background graphics to kind of imitate the sprite. It's not a real
Mhm.
hardware sprite, but it's not very easy to do, right? You need to do a lot of planning.
It's a lot more code too, isn't it? It would
Yeah,
take a lot more code to do that.
It can be, yeah. It doesn't really, I mean, you have to, because if you're using hardware sprites, you have like collision registers and things that you can use that the hardware offers you. But if you're using software sprites, you have to keep track of coordinates and
Mm-hmm.
whether things are going next to each other, and if you're moving that sprite, you need to create all the frames, all the possible frames, and update the background tile with each frame, right? So a sprite is like you define a bitmap once and move it around, and it just does it, right? Very easily.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, let me know.
It does,
might know the rest,
to
but,
those who have a little programming knowledge. It may not
Yes.
for others, but I understand what you're saying.
Well, and I know that was a struggle with even just the MSX, though. I mean, I know they eventually ended up getting some good, like shmups and stuff for it. But like even those original games, like it's funny, because obviously I played them on the NES first, and it's interesting to go back and play Metal Gear on the MSX after playing Metal Gear on the NES or Contra on the MSX, because it's like, wow, like it has no scrolling. It's literally going frame by frame, you know what I mean? Like screen by screen, like it is not scrolling with you as you're moving, same with Castlevania. So no, it definitely makes sense what you're talking about there.
Yeah, the MSX was a little limited when it came to scrolling. So I think as the versions were evolving, and from MSX1 to 2 to 2 Plus, it got better with the scrolling, but yeah, it's you do have some constraints in there. So I guess the programmers back then were trying to use what they could.
Mhm.
So I have a question. Oh, you still want to
Go
talk
ahead.
about this?
No, go ahead.
I was going to
No,
change
go
the
ahead.
subject.
Go
Okay,
ahead.
go ahead. Okay,
Oh no, go.
I'll go ahead. All right. I have not played Heli. All right, I've not played it, so and I didn't get a chance to do research to even look to see what the premise was. But our good buddy, Mr. Postyle, who's watching right now, wanted us to ask, and he didn't put it in the chat. He did this prior to the show. He wants to talk about. He said you guys are friends on Facebook or something, yeah, and that he said that there's a Christmas mode in that game. Is that right? Tell us about that.
Yeah, it does. It does have a Christmas mode. So Heli has many secret codes, 4-digit codes that will do different things, and one of those is Christmas mode. So I think if you type 1225, I think that's the code. Yeah, it will
That would make
replace.
sense.
It will replace the graphics. It will replace the sprites. So the game becomes Santa Claus going down, a frozen
Nice.
maze, and instead of the miner, he's saving Rudolph, and you have a temperature meter, so you have to save Rudolph.
Gets
before,
colder and colder.
It gets too
You could
cold.
missed opportunity. It could have been Santa going down chimneys and just dropping
Oh.
off presents, and there could be like the heat meter if you get too close to the fire in the chimney.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, I mean there are presents. So Santa will drop presents, but the presents are the bombs. So that's what you use.
Yes,
for
Presents you
blow
want.
things up. So one thing that is funny about this Christmas mode is that Santa actually has a weapon, right? So he'll actually shoot and all that. So not completely
Mean
harmless there.
Santa.
Yeah, me Santa. Yeah, but Heli, Heli was interesting because it was my basically my first game, the one that got published, and again going back to around 2019, 2020 when I started with this hobby. So looking back, this is more like a pandemic hobby, really. This is how it kind of stuck right with me. But Heli was the result of me just looking at a hero and saying, I wonder if I can do something similar with Inti Basic. And I put a few tests for the Atari Age folks to see, and reception was great. Folks were like, "Oh, you got to finish this. How about this? How about right?" And then at one point, Arturo Ragosini, right, great guy, great friend. He offered to help me with part of the development. It's like I had a few questions back then, so he helped me a lot. So I learned a lot by doing this game. And and then at one point, another person came up and offered graphics. So I said, okay, yeah, let's connect your graphics. Those graphics are much better than what I could do. And so it started coming together in a very collaborative way. And the different modes were just one way I thought to add a little variety. So Christmas mode is one mode. You can do like another one. It's called bottom up mode. So you can fly from the bottom of the mine to the top. Yeah, and so on and so forth. So there are different modes, and you can combine them too. So you can do Christmas bottom up, for instance. You just need to keep entering the codes. But this first game, yeah, go ahead.
Speaking of codes, there are a number of your other games, these two being examples, that have cheat modes.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I was trying to tell Phil about the cheat mode in this in his stream yesterday. I don't know if he saw it.
I did not. It's hard to play. You guys don't know what it's like when you're trying to live stream and do everything. I can't keep track.
Well, that's why
I'm old
anyway.
anyway.
My live stream, I read the chat.
Well, okay, whatever.
But
yeah, so if you press 9, that's always a good move. Not just for my games,
menu,
but for others. Yeah, the menu, you press 9 and see if cheat mode lights up.
Yeah.
Many home brewers have adopted this as kind of the not so secret
So-
code.
And my first experience with that was actually with Boulder Dash. Pressing 9 at the title screen means you play the 5 bonus levels that Scott Nudd's programmed.
Yeah, there you go.
And so here you get 99 lives, if I'm not mistaken. And I believe you got 99 continues here, right?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. But yeah, I have other games that have other kind of codes that you can enter. So one is Antarctic Tales. So there are different codes that will change, like graphics. Like in Antarctic Tales, the penguin is visiting different outposts, and
Yeah.
each outpost belongs to a different country. So you can enter some codes to make all the flags be from Canada or from Germany or from Brazil, etc. So that's one game. The other game is Good Enough. So Good Enough, you can enter codes to go straight to certain stages or do different things. So I like this kind of stuff. Just adds a little variety.
It makes it so much nicer to capture footage for reviews too, because I've got a limited time to capture that footage. And if there's a cheat that I can use that allows me to show the whole game, we're going to use that.
Yeah, for sure.
Makes sense. One of the things I really like about you as a programmer specifically is that, like I mentioned, 4 of my favorite homebrew games for the Intellivision come from you. Not all of my favorites. I'm a big fan of Oscar Kenneth's games.
Me too.
The Kai Magazine games are phenomenal. They set a really, really high bar, as I think these ones do as well. But one of the things I really like about your games is they tend to do things that we haven't seen before. And I think the perfect example, at least on the Intellivision, perfect example is Pandora Incident. I would consider this to be probably my favorite Intellivision homebrew. That is not because it is the most fun to play even, but it is an experience. It is something that a person who's been playing the Intellivision for 40 years will never have played on the Intellivision before. What was your inspiration specifically for this one?
And I appreciate your comments, and I'm always glad to know that people enjoy some of the games that I make. So thank you very much. It's really a pleasure to hear this stuff. But I'd say when it comes to the Pandora Incident, you know, I was a longtime fan of Project Firestart on the C64. So Project Firestart was the original survival horror. It was the first one, I think. So I like a lot this subject of survival horror with gritty sci-fi. I'm a big Aliens fan and all that. So I was interested in doing something similar for the Intellivision. And again, when we had that programming contest in 2020, so that was the contest when I did both the Pandora Incident and Infiltrator. And Infiltrator won first place, Pandora was second. But I was just open to trying different things. So once again, I said for Pandora, why not, right? Let's give it a shot. Maybe it will work, maybe it won't. But I think Pandora, also in big part, it worked because of the good team, right? That kind of came together. So again, Arturo, Justin, Adam, and they all add a little touches here and there and ideas. I think again, going back to the inspiration, right? We all are fans of this gritty sci-fi and having the right ambience, and we wanted to do something around that style, right? So, but when it came to the story and the design of the game, it was not a replica of Project Firestart, because it wouldn't be possible, just the magnitude of the game. but also we wanted to do some new elements, right? Introduce some new elements. So the backstory, the names of the characters, some of the messages that you see on the terminal, the way the story evolves, it has different elements. So that's how we try to develop it.
I'm gonna pause you right there for a second. I just wanted to point out, happy Intellivision Day. Casey, the Intellivision gamer, has just gifted 5 memberships to both Phil's channel and to my channel. Thank you very much.
Yeah, great.
It is incredibly appreciated. I apologize for interrupting you. Yes, one of the things about the Pandora incident that I absolutely adore is that you can play, like, once you know what to do, you can blast through it if you want, but it's going and exploring the terminals. It's going and doing all that. One of my favorite franchises, and I've played it ever since the very first one, is Fallout. And I've always loved Fallout. And I've always loved that you can walk up to terminals and you could talk to anybody in a town and you could do, and they will all have these little pieces. And if you're paying attention, a little piece from over here is going to link to a little piece from way over there, way later in the game.
Yeah, I mean, you certainly have that in this game, little tips and bits that you use to complete the game. And there was a lot of thinking to that. So the Pandora incident was the first time I actually wrote a design document. So I felt like I have to write things down. So I kind of sketch the map and sketch. I literally have a flow chart that shows how things are supposed to, how one event triggers another, etc. I had never done that. So I said, I cannot do this from memory because it's getting complicated, right? And it's exactly because of this element of one little thing here informing how things happen elsewhere. So, so I think, yeah, it's a lot of challenge. It's very challenging putting that together. But I guess the good news is that as you get the reception from the community and you get that encouragement and reinforcement, that gets you going, right, and gets you motivated to keep working on things. So, yeah, but I think overall, Pandora was also a way for me to do something that I also enjoy, which is give players freedom, you know, to maybe reach different endings based on their decisions. So give them freedom of choice, kind of tell your own story to a certain extent. So I love games like this with multiple endings, you know, with different things that you can do.
You know what I liken it to? I was a huge fan of the Choose Your Own Adventure books as a kid. I always loved those. And I was always that guy, that kid who, like, I'd read and it's like, if you do this, you turn to page 50. If you do this, you turn to page 47 or something. I'd always keep my finger there, check to see if I died, then go back and go to the other one if I did.
Yeah, I played some of those too, yeah.
Yeah, but it's one of those things. When I really felt that there was something special here is when I figured out that you could save the doctor.
Yeah, because
I would play it and you're doing exactly what you're supposed to do and all that, and I'm thinking, okay, I have to. That is not a gift, Mr. Postow. That is not a gift. And so most games you play it through and it's like there's one way to play through everything. And when I was like, because I had already played through that part, and I went down there first because I was like, oh, I got to go get the pass card from him or whatever, instead of going back to my shuttle, and he was alive. I was like, wait, what? And then for my review, I beat it and I think I got 60%. I'm like, okay, no, now I have to play it and get different endings. And for those of you who watched the stream, that was my 1,000 subscribers stream. I played it and you awarded me the only 110%, I believe, because I had a faulty controller that kept moving me up, but I beat it with 100% anyway.
Yeah, that's quite an accomplishment. Yeah, yeah. So the doctor is a great example of how right you have to pay attention to different things to get 100% success right in one element of the game. Because I mean the thing with the Doctor, for those who are not familiar with the game, is that so you're basically, your character is in this spaceship and you're trying to get out, right? So you're trying to get out, and eventually the game drops the information that there is at least a couple more people on the ship, right? And one is still stuck on this life pod. So at that point, you can choose to ignore that and still head for the door, or you can go investigate and maybe save that person, right? So that's the first choice you're making. And if you try to leave the ship, the Doctor dies, right? So
Yeah, spoiler alert, that's the first.
Yeah.
That was my first instinct. I'm getting the hell out of here.
yeah, but if you choose to go after him, then you have to take care of him all the way to the end, right? So if you don't protect him, if you so he will ask you to do something without further spoilers, right? And it's up to you if you want to follow through.
You've got to complete the second stage of that thing.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
so he'll ask you to do something, and it's up to you if you want to do it. And if you don't do it, it will tell you what the consequence was, right? So so that's the kind of stuff that I think adds a lot of flavor to the game.
So I'm going to answer this. So Guitar Rob 1969 says he's got an Intellivision 2 console and he'd like to be directed where he could pick up some of these awesome homebrew games that Casey, the Intellivision gamer, has been playing on his channel, but Phil plays them as well, and I review them as well. My two favorite, the ones that I believe are the top tier publishers, are Electronite and Intellivision Collector. They are, I think, they produce the most consistent quality. There are fantastic homebrew games from other publishers, 100%, and there are other good publishers, but those two, I think, are the highest consistent quality. So Electronite, you can email them at electronite@hotmail.com. They do all their orders through email, but they are very, very reliable. Intellivision Collector, though, that's just intellivisioncollector.com, and you can click and buy. You can get the ROMs, or you can get the physical games. Electronite only sells the physical games.
That kind of leads me to a question. I understand why Electronite doesn't, okay, because it was abused. Now, John Champeau, what he does is he codes each individual ROM and then sends it to you so that if it gets out, he knows where it came from. So, but I emulate a lot, and I would be very interested in getting some of these in ROM format, but
so the problem there, the reason Champ Games can do it, and the reason why Atari generally doesn't have this problem, is because Champ Games self-publishes.
Right.
So Electronite, for instance, they'll buy a ROM from Carlos here. They'll buy a completed game. They'll create the packaging. They'll put it on a cart. They'll make the overlays, the manual, and they distribute it. So they're literally publishers. So unless they want to continue paying Carlos over and over to program, okay, somebody bought a ROM, put this name on it. Somebody bought a ROM, put this name on it. There used to be Electronite Games. You used to be able to buy the ROMs, and they would program them directly to your LTO flash. But of course, the person who does all that doesn't do it anymore. And so, LTO flash, the absolute best flash cart for the Intellivision, hands down. Not currently being made. I do have hope that one day they will, but unfortunately, Joe Zbishak, who doesn't owe anything to anyone. I want to be clear. He's done so much for the Intellivision homebrew community. But he's been taking a break on those for a few years now.
I was going to say, because it's been about a year with us doing this, and I know he's been saying for how long, hey, we're going to see a new...
I would love for them to come back, but like I said, Joe doesn't owe anything to anybody. If they never come back, they won't.
But I think, so Phil, you were saying that you can personalize your ROM, right? And I guess the assumption is that by doing that, people are not going to share it. right?
That's
Which
not
Because it would help them.
necessarily the case. They
it
might
may or may
still-
not happen, right? So I do understand when publishers don't want to run the risk.
Oh, I get it too.
Yeah, I'll respect it. But one thing if I have time next year to investigate, will be maybe an easier way to personalize games. So I think there's probably a way that we can automate kind of as you compile the game, kind of
Mhm.
feed it a list of names and run some type of batch to personalize a lot in one shot, right? Many copies in one shot. That would make it less painful because it is a pain, right? To do one by one. So maybe that would be possible. So I just need more time to look into it. But again, it's not a full deterrent, right? I mean, it's something that,
Some people don't care.
yeah. So
Casey says that there are hundreds of LTO flashes ready to go, and they have been near ready to go, and they have been near ready to go for 2 years. I know for a fact. So I'm not holding my breath. The problem isn't that there isn't stuff to make them; it's that they're just not being made.
yeah, I think I was just talking with someone these days that eventually the hardware that we have, the original hardware, is going to fall apart, right?
Oh,
It's
yeah.
not going to
Yep.
work anymore.
Emulation is the future of
Yeah.
a lot of these systems.
Yeah, so you have FPGA systems or you have emulation,
Hmm.
and ROMs are the future. I don't think anyone can disagree with that, but it's more about to the extent that you have investments made to put these games together, how do you protect some of those investments? And maybe the answer is there's no protection. Because even AAA games, modern AAA games, right, with all the resources that they have, they cannot prevent
Right.
piracy completely. So it's hopeless, right? If you
It's-
think about it.
Again, we're going to completely derail here, but I mean, I think
No, this isn't. No, wait, this is
I
okay.
think-
We're talking about the homebrew community now. I think this is all within spec.
and I think the perfect recipe to that, because again, we've talked on this one before, is just that I think it comes down finding the easiest way to get it to the consumer at an affordable price. Because at the end of the day, if the person feels it's a good game and it's affordable, they're going to buy it. They're going to buy it. The people that are quote unquote sharing it, they probably weren't going to buy it to begin with. And I just, but I think that's the key. And that's one thing with, I think, again, as we cross our fingers for an LTO re-release, that we also hope with Atari having Intellivision now, that maybe we can see something come from that. Like, because you're 110% right. These consoles are not getting any younger, and unless you really understand how they work and can do some of the fixing yourself, they're going to die. They're going to die, and or you're going to have to pay someone to try and fix them. But again, even then, there comes a point that when certain chips go on those boards, there's no fixing it unless I'm gutting it from another broken one that hopefully has that specific chip still working in working order. So, when it's capacitors, things like that, yes. I mean, if you're good with a solder iron, you can, take care of that stuff and help, keep the console going. But that's where I do feel Atari's on the right path. We can all disagree on the 2600/7800 plus, should it be an emulation machine or an FPGA, but they're on the right path. And I hope they take that and bring that to Intellivision, because that is an area that's desperately needed. And I think someone like Atari, if they can do what they're doing, like with this latest push of the 7800 plus, get homebrewers like you and get the rights to be able to publish these games at a cheaper cost. Because again, the reality is I understand people don't want to get sell the ROM because of possible piracy, but then that usually means it's about a $70 game, and not everyone necessarily can or wants to put that cost in, where like we've seen with Atari now re-releasing some of these homebrew games, it's a $30 price point because they got a lot more power to mass produce compared to the normal homebrew markets. The Bentley Plus, nice.
I have a Bentley.
But there was my, sorry, I kind of got off the rails there.
Yeah, but I think besides the kind of the obsolescence right factor that we were talking about in here, the physical obsolescence, there's also right the economic element of. I mean, I grew up in Brazil. I know folks there have a hard time with the exchange rate. So ROMs are really what works for markets like that, right? And and there are fans out there outside the U.S., outside of Canada, that just cannot afford the shipping.
Well, even here in
right?
Canada, the exchange rate is killer.
Yeah,
I'm like, if I want to buy a new homebrew game, it's over $100.
yeah. So it's tough on everyone. So I'm with you guys about needing to have a solution for this. On my side, actually, one thing I wanted to announce today is that I'm gonna make one more game free. So that's my little contribution to help folks get
Television
access
Day.
to low cost or free games. So in honor of Intellivision Day, I'm making Halley free. So I'm gonna
nice.
post
Awesome.
it to Atari H after this stream. And I already spoke with Rev, so this game had been published in physical form by Rev, and I think he has announced a few copies today.
For those who don't know, that's Intellivision Revolution.
Yeah, Intellivision Revolution. So if you really want to have a copy, physical copy, Rev will have it. He'll sell it to you, but I'm because I have the rights to the ROM, I'm making it free, just like I made other games free. So just thanking the community for the support and helping more people play games,
And honestly, I have always kind of viewed the ROM thing as, the people that were going to buy your physical copy will always buy your physical copy. They're collectors. They don't care about a ROM. They want the physical copy. And people who are going to steal a ROM were never going to buy a physical copy. So,
yeah,
there are a few of us that like both, though.
Well, no,
absolutely.
I mean, yeah.
Especially as a reviewer, when I buy a Champ game, I buy the package that includes the ROM.
Absolutely.
I use the ROM to capture my footage. It looks way better. It's easier. It's more convenient. I can just grab my Xbox controller and play it on my computer. But I have the cartridge for my collection. I can play it on the TV with my original Atari. Like, it's.
Yeah. Well, and again, I prefer. I mean, I'm still a physical fan, and always will be. But there's definitely a convenience with having a digital copy. And when it comes to homebrew, what I really like is if I'm able to at least get a digital copy, it's a lower cost of entry to see if I really like it. And if I really like it, then I'm likely going to look to get the physical version. And whereas, again, like with the, and again, I am nothing against the, it's just, again, a $70 game, like that's going to be the worst feeling if I go spend $70 on an Intellivision Homebrew
And you don't like it.
and then I end up not liking it. And that's just like, wah, wah, wah. And it's no different than AAA games today. Like, I don't want to go spend $70 on an Xbox or PS5 game only for it to suck, where I would rather be able to get that initial entry in, try it. If I like it, then I'll get the physical. So, but
yeah,
I will mention. Sorry, I will mention, because the Intellivision Gamer pointed out that Champ Games, they sell it as a package or separately. Intellivision Collector does as well. All of Intellivision Collector's games, you can buy digital, you can buy physical, or you can buy a package and get a discount. And happy Intellivision Day for those who don't know. Lock and Chase 8K. If you just want the ROM, you have to add it to your cart and buy it, but it is free. The ROM is free to download from Intellivision Collector.
Nice.
Yeah, I'll admit that I think I would help the community if I could do demos of my games,
Mm.
and I have not been doing that. So that's something that I've been thinking about. Maybe it's starting to do that next year.
No, I think demos would be great, especially if there's not an option to get the full digital version. Like that's a good way for someone to see. Because I said, I have no issues paying $70 for a game if I know I'm going to like it. Because again, I do controllers, you do video. I mean, we're all a community in this, doing this out of passion, and obviously I want to support that as much as I can. And so again, if it's something good, I have no problems, putting that cost down. And a demo for sure would be great if there's not an option to just get the digital ROM to purchase. So.
So Mr. Postile says he got his Goon Enough signed by the Goonies cast at Steel City Con a few years back.
Yeah, I saw the picture. That was amazing.
We're coming close to the end of our hour, but I really wanted to talk about Polista Avenue Redux, because after this stream at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I will be streaming the release candidate for that game. I did play it a bunch this weekend just to make sure there wasn't like any crashes or anything like that. Seems fine. So, but I'll be explaining the game. I've been playing it for a while. I actually helped you pitch this to the publisher.
Yeah, thank you very much.
But why don't you tell us a bit about this game, where it comes from, and what's been done with it?
Yeah, sure. So Polista Avenue Redux is a game that kind of does what I mentioned before that I like, right, about games. It gives players freedom to tell their own story, to make their own decisions, and potentially arrive at different outcomes. So I always love this game because of that freedom that it gives you. And it comes from the MSX platform. So it was a game made during the 80s by a Brazilian author called Mauricio Busab. So I played this game over the years, and it's really unique, in terms of that freedom that it gives you. So with this Redux version, what we are doing is we are upgrading the game, adding music, graphics. We are making refinements to the interface.
To be clear, what I helped you pitch was a really stripped down version of what I'm going to be showing in a half an hour.
Yeah, so the version you saw was much closer to the original MSX version.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I did a 1-to-1 port of the MSX that I'm not planning on releasing because I did it in Portuguese, exactly how the original was.
Oh, okay.
Maybe I'll send it to the Brazilian Intellivision scene there. Maybe they'll have a use for that. But yeah, so I mean that's really the idea behind Polista Avenue. So the story is you're trying to save the world by preventing a witch from performing a ritual that's gonna, kind of open up a dimension of horror and just kill everybody. So you're trying to navigate her foes and piece together different objects and confront her at the end and stop what she's doing. So there are multiple ways to get to the end, and I think it's really I would really encourage folks to experiment with the game. So you can do cool things like you can use an object that removes the weight of other objects, or you can remove the weight of other characters so they can start floating, they can start flying. You have another object that makes objects come alive, and they can start walking around, they can attack other people, etc. So it's kind of a crazy framework that allows for many different things to happen. So the coolest situations happen when you try something that you never thought of, like what happens if I do this, and you're going to find out that something will happen. We're trying to think a couple steps ahead and be there to surprise you when you try those things. So,
and there are still like I have been testing this and playing it on and off for quite a while now, and there are still things that I'm sure are out there that I haven't tried.
Yeah. So give it a shot. I mean, we're still in final testing, so.
Yeah,
but,
well, and maybe we'll do some of that. Maybe I'll see if the witch can fly with some magic wax tonight.
Well,
usually use it for like I will admit I've got a strategy that I have found that I can beat the game. When I use my strategy, I beat the game about 50% of the time. Sometimes you're SOL on getting hit really hard by something, but and admittedly I gravitate to that. You see.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to be streaming the game soon. Like I get the hypno disc. I make sure I get the mortal spear. I make sure I read the book. I make like there's steps.
Yeah, but you can try and solve the game in a different way. You cannot carry every single object or use every single object, and time is limited. So try different.
I played a game earlier today where I was in the top right of the map, and every damn item was on the far left of the map, including the gas mask and the demolition. If you threw out a gas bomb and I couldn't get there, I was like, come on!
Yeah, it, and so the game uses this random placement to really create a fresh feeling every time you play, and
it is different every time, and sometimes it's easy and sometimes it's hard.
Yeah, it randomizes the placement of some objects and some of the characters, and even the duration of the game is not fixed. So randomness is used carefully to introduce a little flavor, a little variability. So yeah, there are games that I play that it feels like everything goes wrong, but then that starts a story of how you win against all odds, right? When everything goes terribly wrong at the beginning and I still finish the game, I feel like, wow, I feel great.
It's like when you're playing Risk and you have the auto places your starting point.
Yeah.
And, some games you're going to have almost a whole continent to yourself and you're all placed together. And other times you're going to have 2 here, you're going to have 1 there, you're going to have 3 here, and you can't do anything. But when you win one of those games, you feel like an absolute champion.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so you may get that feeling when playing this. I hope folks will enjoy the game. There's a lot of love and effort being put into this title.
And incredibly unique.
It is unique. So it's coming out soon, and I hope folks will enjoy your walkthrough.
Hopefully I enjoy my walkthrough. Sometimes you're the mayor of Grumpy Town.
But I get really grumpy when I don't do well. I start screaming and yelling. So yeah.
No, I wanted to ask this one earlier because I know we're literally minutes away here from ending. So I want to make sure I get this one in because, again, looking through the list of the games you make, like I said, I really appreciate the variety of different types of games. And like I said, I can tell your passion with the MSX because of how many of them are ports from that, with your own little touch to them. The one that really amazes me is Eggerland, because I played Lolo on the NES like crazy. It's probably one of my favorite puzzle games. And what made you decide to make that one? Yeah, just because not a lot. It's not a pop. At least I don't think it's as. I know they made 3 of them on the NES, but I don't think it's like an overly popular series because we haven't really seen anything since the MSX and NES era for them. So.
Yeah, well, so Eggerland Mystery was a precursor to the Lolo series, and it appeared on the MSX. And you also have Eggerland Mystery 2 on the MSX. But I played a lot the original Eggerland Mystery. So the way I decided to do this was, going back to that programming contest from 2020, I did Infiltrator, then Pandora, and then I still had like a couple days left before the deadline. I said, you know what can I do in 2 days? So I did Egerland.
I
Nice.
created two homebrew games that are amongst the best for the system. I feel like I need to do a little more.
Yeah.
So I
And
think
it-
it was Steve Jones said, you want to win by spamming the contest? Is that what you're trying to do?
If
Well,
I
I
am
mean,
not
well, but-
mistaken, Infiltrator won that contest, didn't it?
It did, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Very close call with Pandora. Yeah, and Egerland was 4th. The 3rd one was the one from Deckel, TV Pal.
Okay, yep.
So yeah, it was
Operation
a lot of
That's
fun.
pretty good for 2 days. That's pretty awesome for 2 days.
Well,
So-
I was just, I mean, I love, I just love hearing that because again, we've heard so many horror stories back, during the original like Atari days of, they're rushed and they only got a couple days to get a game made, and this is what we got from it, but yet here you are taking 2 days and we get Egerland Mystery.
Yeah, but
and it's a very good port. I mean,
yeah, but it's a little bit of the power of not caring, right? So once you're in a safe environment like a contest, you're doing it. And if it works, right? So it's a
Yeah.
little bit of that, but also going back to Oscar, right? NanoChess. I
Mhm.
think it really is a testament to Inti Basic and the work he has done, which really lowers the bar for anyone who wants to put in the time and effort to learn and program. You can do games like this in 2 days. I mean, and I'm sure Oscar could do this in like half an hour. So if I can do it in 2 days, he can do it much less for sure. But it's because the tools he has built are awesome, right? So
Oscar has lowered the bar so that guys like you and Kai Magazine could go in there and raise it.
yeah.
And that's awesome.
Yeah, Shoulders of Giants, right? I mean, I'm a big fan of Kai, by the way. Kai does great work in other platforms as well. So, I mean, he's at another level. I'm just a hobbyist, but he's the real deal. So, lot of respect for him.
Wow, it's been a great show. Been a great
I
show.
am not
It's been
putting that up, Poe, but I love it.
it's a lot of things we don't put up to put.
yeah, right.
But
Thank you very much, guys, for the opportunity and for the conversation.
I have a request. Just to reiterate, if you're just tuning in, Carlos said that if you go to Atari Age soon after, not maybe right now, but at some point later on, he's going to have the ROM of Heli up. And my request is, you had mentioned a cheat code or cheat codes. If you know what they are, would you put those in the post as well, so we can kind of play around with that? Because I know one of them is
1225 is one of them.
1225.
Yeah, sure.
Is that what you said?
I'll put the code.
1225 makes it Christmas.
Yeah, 1225 is the code for Heli, but the secret code, it seems like in many homebrews, is just hit the number 9.
Right, and that was mentioned
including
as well.
one that I will be streaming in half an hour.
All right,
I'll show you what it does too.
Well, thank you so much, Carlos. We appreciate you being here, and don't leave because we're going to go blank here after we sign off. I want you to stay in the green room so we can say goodbye to you.
Yeah.
I forgot to tell you that
Thank you.
before the stream started. So with that, thank you guys for tuning in, and for all of you who have been watching the simulcast over at Mike's Gaming Gala. Don't forget to tune in to Mike tonight. He's gonna be playing at 9:30 on the channel, so be sure to tune in and watch him over there. All right, guys. So with that, we'll see you next time on Retro Bliss Rewind. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.